Hare Krishna. Know the mind by the company it craves. There's a common saying that we can know a person by knowing the company that the person keeps. Now, that same saying, which we can apply when we are trying to decide whom to befriend, say, okay, what kind of person does that people does that person hang out with? We may observe that to understand the character, the nature of that person, and then decide whether to befriend that person. So that same criteria we can also apply to our inner life. That know the mind by the company it craves. Now, in one sense, the mind is our inner companion constantly, and it's in that situation where we have to live with it. At the same time, the mind is not always our well-wisher. In fact, quite often it acts and prompts us to act in ways that are self-defeating and self-destructive. So in such a situation, we need to first of all recognize that the mind is different from us, and that the mind's nature is different from our nature. We are souls, and the soul has a natural eternal attraction towards Krishna, and by developing that attraction we can gain lasting happiness. So to the extent we can develop our love for Krishna, or we can act on our spiritual nature, we'll be able to develop our love for Krishna. But the mind, as of now, because of habitual material indulgence for a very long time, is having the nature of being materially attracted and infatuated. So because of that, it craves for material company. It craves for the company of sense objects, for the company of wealth, for the company of power, for the company of hobbies, whatever the things may be. So in this way, the mind stays contaminated and makes us contaminated. As we start practicing bhakti, the essence of bhakti, in one sense, is the purification of the mind, because the soul is always pure, and the body is not going to change dramatically. And the bodies, we may change our dress, we may change the way we the way we say apply tilak, the way we have our hair or whatever, but the body is not in that sense going to change dramatically. The soul is always pure and the body is always temporary. But body will still have the demands of eating, sleeping, which are there when we were non-devotees. What is the real change between the devotee and non-devotee is the change of mentality, change of the mind. That means that to the extent the mind is craving for sense objects, to that extent the mind is still materialistic. And to the extent the mind is attached to Krishna, to that extent the mind has become spiritual. So Krishna talks in 3rd chapter of how someone might delude oneself and delude the world by performing external renunciation, but by having internal contemplation on sense objects, one will be deluding and defeating oneself. Karmendriyani sanyamya yasate manasa smaran indriyarthan vimodhatma mithyacharah sa uchyate. So Krishna says karmendriyani sanyamya, that one may control the senses externally, but yasate manasa smaran, that person is sitting in meditation acting as if having great renunciation, but yasate manasa smaran, but internally one is meditating on the sense objects. Indriyarthan vimudhatma. Such a person who is meditating on the sense objects is vimudhatma, is a fool. That person is fooling oneself. Mithyacharah sa uchyate. Such a person is actually a hypocrite, is a fool. So now, what Krishna is saying over here is that we as seekers should not delude just because we have adopted the external things that signify devotion. We shouldn't assume that we have already become devotees, but we can look that what is the thing that the mind craves for. Later in the Bhagavad Krishna 7.1 will say that how mai asakta manaha. So he said that the mind will become attached to me, and that is the sign of a serious exalted devotion. So as of now, if we observe which are the things towards the mind runs habitually, then if you're seeing that even now the mind is running towards sense gratification, whenever it gets some free time, if it starts craving for sense objects, then we can understand that the mind is still materialistic. But if we keep practicing bhakti steadily, then gradually even this doggedly materialistic mind will start realizing that we will be able to that we get greater happiness by cultivating remembrance of Krishna than by fantasizing or laboring for getting sense objects. And in that way, the mind will start longing for Krishna, for the hearing the holy names of Krishna, for associating with devotees, for studying scripture, and for sharing Krishna's message with others. When the mind starts craving does, then we can understand that the mind has become purified. Then the mind becomes our friend whose company will uplift us. So we, by observing what are the things that the mind craves for, can understand how much we have progressed in our inner journey. And we can take heart from the fact that at least, even if we say that my mind mostly craves for sense objects, but we can find that there will be some things within Krishna Bhakti that the mind also is attracted to. And that itself we can see as testimony to the transformational potency of Krishna Bhakti. And as we keep practicing Bhakti more and more, that transformation will become more and more thorough, more and more pervasive, and more lasting, till the mind becomes attached to Krishna and we become joyfully situated in Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna.